Hello, everyone. Like I said, I'm Ivan. I'm a creative director at a company called What 3 Words, which is a startup. I've been there in startup years, like 20 years, but actually just 2. We've done quite a lot in that time. And we have the mission of helping everyone talk about everywhere, which means I spend a huge amount of time thinking about location as a user experience. So for instance, if I wanted to get a cup of coffee from upstairs delivered to that spot over there, that's a very easy user experience for the people in this room. You can see me pointing, you know where the spot is, you can pop out, get a coffee and bring it through. If you forget where I was pointing, someone here will help you find it. If I want to order coffee in from another place, I need to give them an address. So it's the British Museum, we're in the Stevenson Auditorium, we're on the stage, but I need it on like about 3 foot from the edge and about 5 foot forward from the wall, please. If I get all techie on you and decided I would love to have a coffee delivered by a drone, for instance, I now need to work out how to tell a computer where that is in a way that it will understand. So the language that we use to describe that gets a little bit more complicated. And then if I would love a Brazilian coffee from Rio de Janeiro, how do I tell someone who only speaks Portuguese what the address is for this particular spot right here? So how do I get over the language issue? Now I can use a GPS coordinate, and that is the GPS coordinate for this spot right here. I stalked the stage. But it has a few problems. It's brilliant for computers, and you cannot get more accurate than this. But our co-founder, Chris Sheldrick, used to be in the music business. And he ended up with a bit of a kind of a problem with musicians. They keep getting lost. They're always going to warehouses for raves, or they're going to strange venues, parties. And what he was finding that getting these guys to the right venue on time with the right equipment was actually quite difficult, especially when you started to organize big events. So he had the bright idea that he would just give everyone a GPS coordinate. You just plug that into your nav system, and it works brilliantly. So he sends a band to a wedding in Italy. Knowing that Italian addresses can be a little bit iffy, he gives the band a GPS coordinates, and they plug that in. And a few hours later, he gets a phone call from the band leader. He says, "We're set up." It's brilliant. We're at the wrong wedding. And what had happened was they had transposed 1 digit and went 100 kilometers south of Rome instead of 100 kilometers north of Rome. Now, musicians aren't thick. They just happen to encounter new addressing systems more often. They don't get the hacks that we use every day to get around London, for instance, or Kent. This is an Ollie. It is an autonomous vehicle that is built for kind of people with mobility issues, so whether you're blind or in a wheelchair, and it's powered by IBM Watson. If this vehicle arrives 10 meters away from the exact spot where it was meant to stop, you cannot get out of there without, in a wheelchair. You are not at the ramp. Except there's no steering wheel, so you can't reverse. And if you give it the address that you gave it in the first place, it's just going to go around the block and come back again and park at the same spot. It's not that the Ollie is stupid, it's that the input for that address is wrong. And addressing, when you start to really think about it, like we have unfortunately, is a little bit odd. There's lots of duplication in our addressing systems. So if I search for Church Road, London, I get 14 church roads. If I search for Juarez Street in Mexico City, I get over 500 Juarez streets. Which one are you talking about? We also have an issue where names sound very similar. So, and when you're giving that to a computer, that can make a mistake. But also, when I'm just on the phone to you, you can make a mistake between Acacia and Acada. It kind of becomes comedic when a tourist missed an R when they were filling in their GPS nav system in Iceland and ended up 900 kilometers away from where he was meant to be. It was meant to be a half-hour drive, and 8 hours later, he realized that he shouldn't have followed the navigation system quite so clearly. These are issues that happen over and over again to us. In places like Saudi Arabia, which are developing very quickly, this is Mecca. So the Hajj has millions of people come to this spot every year who have never been there before. It's a first-time experience. So when you are turning up with your tour group and you get separated, how on earth do you find anybody? And just over the horizon, you can't see it there, they're building a $200 billion city called Noem from scratch on the coast. And the way it works out there is they build the street, and then one day, someone will give it a street name. Until that moment, Google Maps is not really going to be able to find it very well. This place, hard to tell where that is if I just wanted to share that information with you very quickly and easily. And if you live at this house, getting a delivery can be a little bit complicated. I was very lucky to go and visit this tribe up in northern Mongolia in May. They're a reindeer nomadic tribe, and they move around with their herd. They also happen to be an Airbnb. Now, how do they tell me how to find them in the taiga forest, where they are going to be for 2 weeks, and then they move on to the next place? I'm sure everyone's got stuck with their Airbnb in Paris, for instance. Now, a normal address works perfectly well, and especially in places like London. The pin drops, boom, in the middle of the building. Except on big buildings, it's a bit of a problem because it drops right in the middle, you have no idea which entrance you're supposed to go to. So you end up wandering around. BBC building is a good one. This building, thankfully, has gigantic gates at the front, and you know where to go. And this is this story pops up every day, whether it's Airbnb or Deliveroo or Lyft. It's the little input, like you give it an address and the system does not understand. Now, I love to imagine Chris Sheldrick, co-founder, sitting down with Mohan, co-founder, 5 years ago, over cups of tea, and they think to themselves, so Chris says to Mohan, who happens to be a professor of number theory and ancient languages, as one is, he says, how am I going to get my bands to the right place without making mistakes? There must be a simple way to do this. And Mohan thinks, well, you could use words. Words are more memorable than numbers. They're easier for us to say and to write down. We make fewer mistakes with words. And then he does some number theory math and works out that you could use 3 words to map or to give an address to every 3 meters square on the planet. So they went and made a grid and then gave every single square a 3-word address. So for instance, I am standing at orders behind tanks, and this is input.fingernails.ending. So this is where I would like my coffee delivered, please. 5 years later, after that eventful tea party, this is how you can navigate in a Mercedes-Benz A-Class using a 3-word address.
Hey, Mercedes.
How can I help you?
Navigate to what 3 words? Voucher, army, shadow.
Select an entry, please.
Number 1.
Do you want to start route guidance or modify the current route guidance?
Start route guidance.
Route guidance is starting.
So there's a long way from sketching on a pad of paper to kind of creating basically a voice interface system that gives you brilliant error detection for location in a car. And I'll take you on that journey with me a little bit, and you can see what we've been trying. The thing to remember is that we're a startup, and we're making it up as we go along. So we go as fast as we can. We don't break anything. We're not like that. But we tried a lot of stuff, and I'm going to show you a little bit what we've been up to. So fundamentally, What 3 Words is a simple way to talk about location. This is a human-to-human system or a human-to-computer system. But people are important here. If you just want accuracy, GPS is brilliant. Numbers and computers work great, but this is about people who are trying to kind of remember a home address in a refugee camp in Uganda, for instance. So how does that, that's what we're talking about, like something that's very simple. And our ambition is to become a global addressing standard, something that very few systems have ever managed to do. The metric system was invented in 1670. Napoleon made it kind of the empire's standard in 1790, and the UK still hasn't decided to go full in, full out. So these are very, very difficult things we're trying to do. We need to be incredibly ambitious about what we hope to be able to do. So we're here to talk about user experience. And 5 years ago, the guys thought, this is our user experience. We write some cool code. We give that to developers. They put it into whatever application they're building. And that's it. We don't worry about it. User experience is someone else's problem. Except that's not the way these things work. We've had to learn user experience for 11 different industries. As it says here, like 600 companies. We've had to learn how location is used in logistics, in automobility, in British Museum archaeological digs, in post offices. I know more about post offices than I ever wanted to know. And all the back-end systems that make it possible, but also how are people dealing with this information? Like manually, how do I go from A to B? So, what 3 words? I'm going to build it up a little bit so that you kind of see how we work here. Our approach to life is pretty simple. I don't believe creativity has a department. Everyone in the business, and there are 80 of us, needs to be creative. Everyone will have an idea that might change the way the world works. And so we pull a kind of, basically I have a studio, but they're not the creative department. We don't make it someone else's problem. The other thing we do is that user experience is everyone's responsibility. And that includes the accountants who are busy paying our suppliers, or it's the business development team who are out at a conference in the middle of nowhere. Every story they tell builds up not only our brand, but also the understanding of how our system works. They also learn how people use it. So every bit of feedback we get helps us make the system a little bit better, and the way we explain the system. You can kind of break it into about 5 different pieces here. System, language, we're based on words, right? We have a huge language team. Information design, communication, and interface design. Now for me, these things all kind of mush together. So if you're in the mobile app, it actually includes all 5 of these pieces. But if you're looking at an ad, it would just be a communication piece. Those very disparate kind of elements all can be stuck together with experience principles, like really simple building blocks. We are original, we are friendly, trusted, and ambitious. Original is something that we brought in very specifically because it's an original idea, and we always need to remember that new ideas are bloody hard for people to get and to accept. It takes a long time before we become familiar enough with an idea to accept it. I'm going to say you're probably all early adopters, but the majority of people don't have time for a new idea, and their hacks around, for location specifically, work perfectly fine. So we need to remember that, but also try and find new ways to make the system better. We need to be friendly because talking about geographical information systems is horrible and dull. We need to be trusted because this has to work always. And so the way our system is built is if this company ever disappeared, it becomes open source. Anyone can use it. the other thing to remember is yes, we're a for-profit company, but NGOs, emergency services, it's just free for everyone in those spheres. And of course, we need to be ambitious because changing the world is quite a hard thing to do. So how does the system work? Well, we have split it into 57 trillion squares. That covers the entire surface of the Earth, in oceans and water, and given each one of those a 3-word address. So this is gazed across like, for instance. To do that, you need 40,000 words out of the dictionary. So that's 40,000 times 40,000 times 40,000 gets you to 60 trillion. So we have some spares. For a reference, there are 100 billion stars in the visible universe. So we have a lot of words. If you do this if you use the French map or if you use the Mongolian map, we only use 25,000 words because we only do the land masses. Makes it a lot easier in things like in languages like Baha Indonesian, which are structured quite differently to English and don't have as many words that are easy to use. We take all the words that sound the same out of the word list, so there are no homophones. So which and which has been taken out. All rude words, hopefully, most of them, have been taken out. And we do this with language consultants. So at any stage, we might have up to 1,000 language consultants creating these word lists for us. We then, using some very clever math, separate these addresses that sound similar. So if you're in the US and you are in your Mercedes-Benz and you say, take me to table, chair, lamp, it's not going to drive you to Australia. And there's quite a few like error detection systems built into it. We learn as we go through the language creation, like the language list process, because every single language has got its own, what's the word for it, like weirdnesses, I suppose. So for instance, we learn quite a lot doing Arabic. Arabic is a very sensitive language, partly because of Mecca. And so there's a word which everyone knows is tractor. Tractor in Arabic is perfectly fine in Egypt, in Oman, in Yemen, but if you happen to be in Saudi Arabia and you say the word tractor, it's slang for pimp. So that can't be in the word list. Goodbye tractor. And we've done this for, from Thai, Chinese, Korean, Japanese. Each word list has to be created from scratch. It's that piece of design has to be built into everything. Interesting thing that turns up from language consultants is also they have to use the app quite a lot. So they have to input 3-word addresses in order to test them. It's very subtle here, but what they were doing was one of the consultants pointed out that it was a little bit hard to input a 3-word address because it's word, dot, word, dot, word. And we were like, there's something weird because Japanese consultants typically don't moan about stuff. And it turned out what was happening was they were typing in a word in kanji, which is the language you decide to use in Japan, then having to go out to a Roman keyboard. So switch out, period. Switch back to kanji, type, 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 switch back out. And you're like, that is the end of the world. No one in Japan would ever use this system if that's what we did. So we made a decision to use the interpunct, which is in the Japanese keyboard already, but that means actually having to go back to the system. We have to go back into the programming to fix that particular problem. So how our interface works affects the algorithm itself. In China, they don't say 3-word address, they say 3-phrase address. As a weird aside, characters are words. There aren't actually enough words to create 25,000 word lists, and they don't sound different enough. So what they do is you create phrases out of that. So we are now called 3-phrase address in China. When it comes to information design, this has actually been this is a constant thing we're working on. And I'm going to rely on time to solve this problem for us and familiarity. This is the way it was originally created. A 3-word address is index.home.raft. very logical, and works fantastically well for computers. Except if you're trying to find index home raft in that block of copy, good luck. Now for me, I'm a very, I find meaning in things, and I think a lot of people do. When you see three words put together with no particular rhyme or reason, you try and create a poem out of it, or you find the connection. And this is just a code. So we needed something that was a little bit more a signifier that told you the next three words are a three-word address. Unfortunately, the @ sign was taken, hashtag was taken, but what those things do for us, what those do for us generally is actually very useful. So we settled on ///, partly because it is a nice symbol for three words. The other thing is that it's not actually, 3 slashes isn't used in code. So // yes, 3 slashes, not yet. So that's something that we can actually build into other people's backends. And it does a very good job of helping you spot that there's 2 addresses in this block. And if you do that, it's even easier. And the brief for me was always, we need to make this easy enough for people to write. Okay, this is people first, so can I hand draw this? So if I write this on a letter, will the postman spot that there's a 3-word address on there and that I haven't just written some strange name? In practice, this is how it works. This is a restaurant guide, like a magazine in South Africa called Eat Out, and they've added a 3-word address to all of their listings. So it is a piece of information you add to an address. So Hyde Park Shopping Center, Jan Smuts Avenue, Spots Prowess Trek, and that is the car park entrance that they want you to enter. That's the best place for you to go to that restaurant. Lonely Planet have added a 3-word address to every single entry for an experience or place to go, a hotel, in their Mongolia guides, which is awesome. But what's very useful for them is that their writers have gone to all those places, picked the spot, and then now that they want to do it in French, or if I'm a Swedish tourist, it's very easy to just translate that. So all they do is they switch to the new language, and I can use that addressing system in my own home language. I don't know if you've seen Mongolian Cyrillic, but it's pretty damn hard to fathom normally. This is how you would add a 3-word address to a letter or a box. And I'll show you a piece of optical character recognition software that we've built that helps delivery people actually make sense of that, because there's no area name attached to that necessarily. Right? So one of the issues that you'd probably have is go, how do I know where this address is if it's totally randomly placed? We work through all those issues. When it comes to communication, we do a lot of stuff. So 1/3 of our company is marketing. And when I say marketing, what I really mean is explain, explain, explain. And every single word counts. And for a bunch of years, we said 57 trillion people, 57 trillion squares to people. 57 trillion is like a number so huge, everyone will switch off. So now we don't say those things anymore. But we make ad campaigns, we do lots of video, and I'll show you some of that in a second. We do demos, and we've got a really interesting little kind of studio team to make that possible. We make films like this, which is to help, in this particular case, Cabify app users understand what a 3-word address is and that they can use it in that app now. So this is an example of an integration. I don't care if one day there's no what 3 words app. I'm not here to be an app company. I'm here to create an addressing system that becomes normal and helps people get places.
Hi, where is this meeting again?
The meeting's at Palantino's restaurant, and the 3-word address is Puzzle Admiral Curvy.
Navigate to what 3 words? Puzzle Admiral Curvy.
Starting route guidance.
I think I'm going to be making these films for the rest of my life, actually. We do a lot of PR and storytelling, not about ourselves, but about our the people who use the three-word address. So this was a big piece that was in the Observer in June, a long read about a doctor in South Africa by the name of Dr. Kuni Lo, who does work in rural communities, very much with kind of at-risk women and pregnancies, but also around alcoholism in families. 2 years ago, we did a project with him, supporting him in Durban, in South Africa, and this is what he does with the three-word address.
In South Africa, about 1,500 mothers die annually because of not arriving at hospital in time, and 34,000 babies don't arrive in time. So it's not just one anecdotal experience. Statistics shows that there's a lack of transport. We have ambulances, but they are few and far between, and we couldn't find a way to actually locate a pregnant woman or pinpoint her location.
So if really there is a way that we can get to these people in time, it's not going to be only me feel good. All of our public will feel good about it.
If like you're waiting for the emergency and the emergency doesn't come, then sometimes you have to hire a car, and the car like maybe will take another 1.5 hours to come and help that person. They will say, we don't know the place, where's the place? They can take maybe 1.5 hours rounding in one place looking for that house.
As we work as an EMRS, we don't have actually the boundaries. So we work the whole of Durban. It's very difficult because firstly, they don't have road names written, and they also don't have house numbers.
We're looking at a system whereby women can request transport, and What Three Words provide us with the opportunity to be able to pinpoint the location of that woman in distress.
With this new system, it looks like it's going to be very easy for these emergency services to locate wherever the problem is, because it's precise. Once a location, a 3 meter by 3 meter location is given a name, then the authorities can go straight to that place. So it's going to make life very easy for the community around the township.
The system of 1 3 words is going to make our life so easy that we can get to these people in time. If they're sick or they're in that state of labor, they are our patients. But when they're out of that, they finish a part of our community. It's so nice when you know you did a right thing. So that is why we try all our means to get to them in time.
We learned two very important things from this project. One of them was when the person came to a woman's door, explained the project, said, this is your 3-word address. What they would do is say, keep it in your Bible. So when you go into labor, you have trouble, your Bible's always going to be in the house. And so you call this number and you give them this address and we will be able to find you. And I thought that was an amazing piece of behavior that we have carried on, which is always give a use case. A 3-word address is a very weird thing to just get. If I just gave it to you cold, you're like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? But if you know that a paramedic will come, who will understand what this address is, that is when it becomes powerful. The other thing we learned was how to make signs. We've given away over 6,000 signs. We've actually about to launch a sign store so that people can buy them themselves. It's actually a remarkably difficult thing to do at scale, because every single one of these has to be unique. there's no mass producing a three-word address because they're all exactly, like, they're yours. There was something else in this one. It'll come back to me later. Anyway, there's lots going on. Oh yeah, actually, no. The other thing, the reason why signs are so important is that addressing systems surround us. So when you walk down the street, houses have got numbers, streets have got names. It constantly reminds you how the system works. It's like Coca-Cola signs constantly reminding you what Coca-Cola is. And so what we're trying to do is for people who are the early adopters or in sites, like let's say a big logistics site where they're moving lots of deliveries around, that those three-word addresses are clearly visible and people can see them and remember what they are. To help that, we've even hacked things like card printers. So our map, you find your three-word address, hit the print button, and as if by magic, here's your Mercedes-Benz address so that when you jump into your brand new A-Class, you can navigate your way home by voice. Of course, we do a lot of things like digital stuff. So mobile app, online map, three-word photo app, we try lots of stuff. And my product team who are over here in the front have done a brilliant job over the last 2 years of kind of upgrading us to be able to scale, right? So our map, which is a web-ready map, and the app have really had to upgrade. We never imagined that we would actually have to be a consumer-facing company. This was meant to be a demo. And we've realized we need to get good at this stuff. Otherwise, we're letting our clients down, we're letting ourselves down. Of course, the team use Atomic Design to build out the design system. And this is going to be something that not only rolls through our main products, but like deep, like through our corporate site, into all the new apps we might create. But it's also something we just give away. So all of our the knowledge that we have accumulated, we just give away. And including to places like Pizza Hut, who create beautiful websites like this, because that box right there can be the end of the world for an e-commerce company. So don't mess with my checkout, is what I've learned. And so we've had to work out when do you discover your three-word address, how do you input it, and how do you do error detection to make sure the damn thing isn't wrong, and which is why we've got a whole bunch of plugins for kind of popular platforms. We do a lot of work with post offices. So you'll learn something today. That's a franking stamp, where you put the date on for a letter. So this is helping Tonga Post remind people that they would like you to use the three-word address because it's much more efficient for them. To make that a little bit easier, we created an optical character recognition system. Now, like the big Siemens postal service, postal sorting machines are like £2 million a pop, which is a bit more expensive than Tonga can afford. So this is a demo that we did in India, actually. There's no music, so we just have to like breathe quietly. So what it's doing is it's reading the three-word address. So you basically go, the way post offices work is that it'll deal with an area and it'll have some strange like geometry to it. So we've created a system that allows them to specify what their area is, and then as it goes through each office, they can get down to street level for the post office worker to use. This is an integration with Cabify, which happened a couple of weeks ago. Cabify, if you don't know, is basically the Uber of the Latin world. So huge, like the biggest ride-hailing app in Mexico, Spain, Brazil. And this is how they've integrated. And it, ideally, for me, just feels seamless. Like it shouldn't even feel like there's anything changed in their system. It's just that you can now use the three-word address in it. we are used by, and starting to be used by, the Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire police services. Now, emergency service is really interesting because their systems are designed almost like by office, weirdly enough. So what they've been doing is making, kind of building up the capacity to be able to identify and use a three-word address on a regular basis. The other thing that they are showing you is the official three-word address gang sign. This is the way it works. Don't make me make you do it. And then finally, this is a company called, it's an odd name, Shenetics, S-H-E-Netics, and they do a navigation system in cars. And this is, for me, like the demo of the power of voice.
Start the car, adjust my seat, set my temperature to 68 degrees, play the Foo Fighters, and take me to update Park Shark.
Demo will turn on your engine, adjust your seat, set the temperature to 68 degrees, play Foo Fighters on Spotify and drive you to update Park Shark.
So this is kind of how we work at What Three Words. It's go as fast as you can, work with very smart people, and learn as much as you can. And not just about the stuff that we've hired people in to do, but very specifically from the people around the world who use the system every day. I've barely touched on the amount of places and things that people use these addresses for. Anyway, hopefully it makes the world a better place and everyone can find everywhere. Thank you.